everyone is kind of looking forward to the Provi the Media today, because I will go over episode 1 today, right? I think I will go over episode 2 and 3 maybe on Thursday, possibly. But number one, I'm watching them, but I'm looking at it from the eye of a lawyer. All right, so that's something that I do think that's something that is a healthy thing to do, because you can't just sit there, look at it, and believe everything that you see on TV just because it's on TV, right? So for me, I want to go over this very, very carefully with a fine tooth, not like a fine tooth comb, but more so. I'm going to take a look at it and go over my thoughts and just kind of what generally went on in episode 1, and I hope it's something that will help you guys out a lot. And like I said, guys, we should be those that are well informed, and for some of us, we're ready to watch it, and some of us we're not, and that's why I will provide the summaries and thoughts for each of the episodes, so that you guys will have an idea of what's actually happening, what's going on too. So that way, a lot of people can still be informed without watching it, because some people might be sensitive to that type of imagery and stuff like that too. So it's really, really the responsibility is on your side, right? I'm not sitting here saying that everyone, you must watch it. I don't want to force anyone to watch it. This is all about you, and this is why I will do the summary for you today on episode 1. Okay,
and
so
that
today's
was Torn Wells and Elevation Worship with Joy in the Morning.
And when you look at it in a very poetic way, it's kind of saying that, the darkness comes, but there will be joy in the morning. When the sunlight comes up back in the morning, it means that the darkness has passed, and the joy will come in the morning when the sun comes up again. And I really hope that all of us can understand that too for our lives right now, or in every life, in everything that happens in life. There's always going to be, like I said a couple weeks ago, is the winter is going to come, and the winter will pass. Right? And this is why I'm going into today's Provi the Media. I'm going to talk about Netflix episode 1. And a couple things that we need to know from like the big picture. I want you guys to take a look at the big picture first. One of the things I'm trying to do is, I said at the very beginning, I'm looking at these episodes with the mindset of a lawyer. Now, why would I want to do that? Well, the one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to be influenced by emotion. I don't want to be influenced by something that's shocking to watch. Right? So some people can be influenced because something is so shocking, like, oh my gosh, and then because of that, they get trauma, or they get influenced by it, not because something is true or false, it's mainly because it is shocking, right? And a lot of times, when you're looking at things from a lawyer's point of view, you have to look at something that, what is going to prove that what you said is true? Like, that is the big thing that I look at. Is it proof? Is it enough for me to say, oh my goodness, this is beyond reasonable doubt? Now, when you look at a court case, one of the big things that we look at is you'll have not in Korea though, but in regular cases, you'll have, like in America and Canada and other countries too that have the system, you'll have jurors, 12 jurors that are going to be listening to all the evidence from both sides. And then in order for there to be an absolute conviction, like this person is wrong, they are a murderer, they are a rapist, they are a grand theft, whatever it is, or someone who, did this or that, all 12 have to agree and say, yes, it's beyond reasonable doubt. Now, why is it beyond reasonable doubt? No one can prove 100%, right? We know that. That's true. Like, even when it comes to God, you can't prove 100%, you can't disprove 100%, but we look at something as beyond a reasonable doubt, which means that everyone on the jurors, all 12 are going to look at it and say, oh, okay, yeah, you can never prove 100%, but from all the evidence that we've seen for sure, yeah, beyond a reasonable doubt, it's reasonable to say that they did it, right? So this is something that we have to understand too is, when you're going to, if you're going to watch this, there are going to be some shocking things you're going to see, right? And don't let the shock get to you and say, oh my gosh, this proves everything. And the answer is no, it's not. You have to look at things that are proving everything. Like, for instance, let me give an example. If someone writes an apology and just says, oh, I'm so sorry, that proves nothing. It doesn't. Right? Because there has to be an actual confession, like, I am sorry for doing this, because you could be sorry for multiple reasons. Multiple reasons, right? You couldn't just break it down to just one point, okay? And that's why, when we look at this episode 1, the big picture is the biggest thing we have to look for. And we'll look at episode 1, so just the first one, right? And I'm sure if it's, I know there's 3 episodes out right now, and I'm sure it's just going to get worse and worse. But the first episode obviously is just setting the stage. Like you can kind of see it, it's building towards something else, right? So, obviously there's no evidence or proof that Sunseem's done anything. There isn't. There isn't anything, right? And another thing you need to know is everything, this is all filmed way earlier than even the trial, right? Which means that the person who's making this documentary is making it even before the trial starts and is basically giving a platform for the accusers. We can't say victims because once you say victim means it is absolutely true, right? That's why that's one of the tricks that media does is media says these are the victims, right? And once you hear the word victim, you think, oh, it actually happened to them, but nothing is proven, right? So it's actually still they're alleged victims, right? And they're not people who has actually happened, right? So that's one of the tricks that media does with wording. So when you look at this, it's like, okay, so these are the accusers, and they get their platform to say everything that they want to say, right? And when you look at the documentary and even the articles of this documentary, the producer basically wants to, make people not believe anymore. If you watch this, you're not going to believe in this history anymore kind of thing. So he has a goal. He has some assumptions and a narrative. So if you understand this, it's based on the documentary, the producer, the director's narrative. Like he believes this, and everything is going to support and lead to that, right? And that's why for us, we have to look at ourselves looking at ourselves, right? We have to understand we have to look at it from a different point of view, right? We're looking for absolute proof, like beyond a reasonable doubt, right? This is not about what people thought. It's not what people are accusing. It's not even about the actions of members, because you're going to watch these videos, you're going to see some actions of members. You're like, whoa, that's weird. Why would they do that kind of thing, right? And even leaders, right? The way leaders were going about this too, we have to be able to understand this very, very well, right? So the proof, you can't blame you can't say, oh, Sunseem, like Sunseem did this. Why? Because the members sent this type of video to him. You can't. There's not admission of proof. This is just, this is basically, even the trial right now there is no proof. Why? Because it's a he said, she said thing, right? So there's no proof at the moment. And what the prosecutors are trying to do is show that, look at all these bad things in the past, which means that he must have done it this one. And the answer is, well, you can't really look at that and say that's absolute proof that he did this, right? Because let's just say this. Imagine you were someone who was a bad person before you came to this history. Let's just pretend, or let's just say in the past when you were young until you're 20, drug dealer, doing drugs, hurting people, went to jail, all these other different things. Let's just say that you were like that, and then you changed, and you come and you change yourself, and you become someone who's a good citizen in life, and then someone says, look what this person did to me, and then all they do is look at your past and say, look at all the bad things you did, so you must be guilty now. And that doesn't make sense either, right? And that's why you can't base it on the narrative and any assumptions. You have to look for absolute proof, like real proof, right? And that's why the narrative from this documentary that, is kind of starting off with, hey, this problem has always been there in the past, right? So it's kind of trying to let you know that he was like this before, so he'll always be like this. And, he's a bad person, so now the public opinion will be that he is guilty. It's going to be a very emotional thing, okay? So that's kind of one of the things you have to keep in mind is, remember, they are accusing us, which means they have the burden of proof. The onus goes on to them, and they need to prove that it is absolute and is true, okay? So we go into episode 1, and it's episode 1 starts off with, it does an intro and stuff like that, and the intro is kind of interesting too, because the intro shows Sunseem teaching about the fall. I'm not sure how that, but if you put really dark music behind it, and if this is about sexual crimes, and Sunseem's talking about it in his Bible study, I'm not sure if that's supposed to make people think that, oh my gosh, that makes him bad because he teaches about this, but he's teaching not to do it. So it's kind of weird for me to see that. And then there was like some audio recording in the beginning that's showing this little piece of it. It's very muffled. And when you hear the voice, to me, it doesn't even sound like Sunseem too. So I'm not sure about that, how authentic that recording is. And in the beginning, basically, it's Maple from Hong Kong. She comes in and she says, hey, excuse me, I was, people tried to stop me from doing the documentary. And, personally, I think that's not a bad thing. Like people, when she went to the airport, someone went to meet her at the airport and says, hey, please don't do this documentary, right? And then also when she went to Hong Kong, it shows that some of the people there told her not to come to the not to do the documentary either, kind of thing, right? And for me is when I look at that, I would be like, wow, like, because people don't want her to do it, and there are probably people that she knows, right? So I kind of understand that, but the way it's portrayed is people are following me, and she said that people are following her all the way from the airport to her hotel. There's like someone parked up there, and basically there's a lot of conjecture, and there was nothing proven that she was being followed. There was nothing there, right? So, but if you're just watching it, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, they followed her, they did this, and this, but there's nothing there that actually proves it. And even when I was looking at, kind of looking at the video of, oh, there's a car following us, it's the same car from yesterday, I'm not sure. And even when like the camera crew came out to go to the people in the car, they're all covering their faces. Why? Because they have a camera pointed at them. Why would they want to be recorded? You know what I mean? So even that, I was kind of like, I don't know if that's real or not, right? I'm just looking at it from a very like observational point of view. Is it real? Were they really being followed, right? They blocked the license plate. Did they check the license plate? Did the license plate belong to members? Does it belong? Like, who does it belong to? But there was nothing there proven. Anything else like that? It's just like, oh, they were following us. Oh, it's the same car, and it was done there. So for me, I was like, oh, that's interesting, right? And is it possible? Sure, I'm sure it's possible too, right? So she does this video in the hotel saying that I'm gonna do this now because I might die, which I think is a little bit, well, I think she's probably really, really stressed at that moment because, she's about to do this documentary. It's going to change her life because she's going to always be known as that person, right? And, she kind of made it like someone was out to get her, to kill her. But, I don't think there's ever been anything like that in Providence. Like, we're going to kill her? So that was something I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Maybe she, maybe that's what she's feeling at the moment. So that's very possible that she feels, she's very paranoid because of the situation that she's going through. And then also the people in Hong Kong, when she was at the airport, told her that if she does a documentary, she's going to face great pressure, right? Or great influence, right? And, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I think that's true too, because, I was someone who was talking to Maple in the past also. And we got along fine. I was helping out with the YouTube channel, everything else like that. And, she said she was, like facing great pressure. Like, this is what I mean by when you single out something certain, like great pressure means you're going to die. Like, what does that mean, great pressure? Like, I can give you like 10, 20 different reasons of pressures you can feel. Because when I talked to Maple about this, it was like, I was like, hey, if you do this, there's going to be pressure. Like, not pressure from members, just society itself, right? Pressure from public scrutiny, pressure from media, pressure in life, having this over you for the rest of your, there's just a lot of different pressures that happen in life besides this. It's really, really a stressful thing to put yourself on TV to the entire world. So, that's what I'm saying is there only one reason for something, only one possibility that great pressure meant that the Hong Kong members were threatening her that they were going to go and assassinate her? And the answer is, I don't think so. And it's kind of like, it's hard to put it down to just one thing. And then it went into talked about like Provi history, how history started. It talked about Korean history, how there was, it was a very difficult time in Korea with a lot of protests with students, and how evangelism began with elite universities. And that's a strategy, and I don't think that's a bad thing. So, like, I don't know if it was trying to make it look bad or not, but some things were actually, they kind of testified a bit too. Like, one of the guys who left was talking about how many miracles and signs there were. That's why he came. Like, he talked about the prophecy of Sunseem, excuse me, naming the winners of the election at that time in the 80s in order of top to bottom. So that was a miracle. Someone talked about Sunseem prayed for their mother. The doctor said she would die. She's terminally ill, but Sunseem said she's going to be fine, and she lived. There was people with cancer who was healed, people walking without a limp anymore. They were limping before, not limping anymore. Their back was healed, arthritis, or all these other different things that that people were actually receiving a lot of. They received miracles from Sunseem too. So that was something that I thought it's something that's a helper, right? It's something that really helps them. It helps Sunseem's cause because he was making miracles happen. And then they took one sentence out of context when Sunseem says, "I can heal everything with one touch," right? And yes, he said that before, but we also know that as those that listen to the word, he also talks about responsibility, talks about your faith, that if you don't have enough faith, then you can't be healed, and if you don't set any conditions, like there's a lot of different things that Sunseem talks about besides healing with one touch, right? So even when I looked at that, you can see that there is a narrative or a goal that they're pushing towards, right? Yes, they showed the sentence, "I can heal everything with one touch." And then they said, "But there are many people that were not healed." And I was like, that's true, but if you look at the full context of how Sunseem talks, he does talk about when he heals someone, "I heal someone with one touch." But then on the other hand, he does say there's responsibility. And he does say that your faith matters too. And he does say setting conditions make a difference too. So I could look at that and say, yeah, that was definitely taken out of context also. Then there was like an old pastors and stuff talking about the doctrine Sunseem teaches, and he talks about the parables and the metaphors. And Sunseem doesn't say everything's a metaphor, but the way that the pastor talked about, he said that the whole Bible's a metaphor. And the answer is no, it's not. There are some things that are real. And Sunseem just talks about some of the things that we misunderstand that are more spiritual than they are physical, right? And then I think Maple talked about how the word was so great because it was scientifically backed too. Like you take science and you try to prove it through science also, which makes the Bible make a lot more sense, which for me, as I agree with. Like there are Sunseem doesn't use science all the time. It's not so much science, it's more like there's some things that involve science and some things that involve like involve seeing it more spiritual than physical, right? Like spiritual clouds. Like Jesus not literally coming on the clouds, coming on spiritual clouds, which are the people, right? So there was another section where it's very, very taken out of context. It says, Sunseem says, "You can't see God, just look at me," right? And the answer is, oh, we know this. This is from those lessons like Holy Trinity and like Rapture, and it's also from those other lessons. Because when we look at the man of mission, remember we know the relationships is we can't see God, so we see God through the one that He sends. And we've learned this before, so this is taken out of context also. And another thing that's quite interesting that I like, because a lot of the stuff I looked at is very doctrinally based, and a lot of it is taken out of context. So he says, yeah, if you can't see God, look at me. You could see me, you could see God through me. But in the translation says, "I am God," which is like, that was a bad translation. He's not saying I am God, right? And he's not saying it literally because, we know many times he says, "I'm not God." Hey, don't say I'm God. I'll get judged, right? So that was taken out of context also. And there's another part saying it's very difficult to meet Sunseem and always big people around him or really pretty girls, always giving counseling. So it's really, really hard to meet him. He's so busy. And I would say it is hard to meet Sunseem. It is. I don't really doubt that. Yeah, because he's so busy. Like if you look at his life, he's so busy. And the only reason I was able to meet Sunseem is when he comes over to the foreign countries, there's only like 20 of us, and he can counsel all 20 of us. Or and it's a blessing, right? Is it hard to meet him? Absolutely, right? Is it? For me, am I honored to it? Yeah, I'm honored to meet him too. He's such a busy guy doing so many things. So that's kind of like the build up that's slowly starting to build up. So you kind of look at all these other different things. They're trying to put they're taking a bunch of different pieces out there, some of them out of context, and they're trying to put them together, right? And then you start to go into the accusations, right? So the accusations are coming out. There's like 3 or 4 people that come to testify. Right? And most of them are older. Maple's the only one that's young. Everyone else is from like 1999, 1991. Like we're talking way, way in the past. These people are accusing from 30, 40 years ago. Right? So it's kind of weird because the way they portrayed, like when they what they do in film style is they have what do you call it? Someone's telling the story, and then you have like a dramatization of it, right? And it was really weird for me because the girl says, "Oh, I walked into his room to counsel," and then but then when you look at the dramatization, he's in his bathrobe, which is really personally, I just never seen him in a bathrobe. So I was like, wow, that's weird. Like he was in a bathrobe counseling. I've never seen somebody counsel in a bathrobe before, like ever. But that's just me. Maybe I haven't seen that point. But he was counseling in a bathrobe, and she was a minor. And I'd say the first couple of things that I saw, like when it comes to the accounts from the people way in the past, these accounts were from the past. And if you look at the timeline, like of the first accusations that first the media allegations came in 1999, right? And even after formal charges were come against Sunstein in 1999 or 2001 was the first time formal charges, and this one he was overseas, and then in 2006, the two victims, alleged victims, they took a medical examination in a hospital. While under protection, police protection, and the examination resulted in a finding of no traces of sexual assault. So the Korean police hospital did a subsequent check on both of the accusers and found no traces of sexual assault, right? So one thing you need to look at is these people are kind of hashing out from the past, and these ones have already been dealt with, right? And a lot of them we've looked at and said, oh, wait a second, oh, we know these people, or some of them have already been like found not like proven to be not worth like it. The cases didn't go through because they went to the hospital, got checked twice, and both times there was no signs of like sexual assault at all, right? So if you look at those 5 waves of media coverage and how many times they never went through, you're looking at these people that are from the past, right? And that's why it's kind of all these past things, and they're able to say all the things they want, even though some of these things are proven to be false, right? So there is this very, very interesting concept that I've heard also from the past is that the way that they portrayed it is they said that Sunstein teaches about the fall, and the fall means that we're not allowed to have sex, and the answer is that is false, right? The answer is Sunstein's not saying don't have sex. What Sunstein is saying is wait till you're married, which is a very conservative and traditional Christian point of view that even Christians, like traditional Christians, will agree with, right? He didn't say never. He just said don't do it until you get married, right? But the way it portrays in the video is just you can never have it. And it's like, well, then why would you have married couples? And why would they have children in second gen, right? And then basically, Sunstein, this person who is an old pastor said, well, Sunstein is the perfect Adam, so you have to do it through him. So I'm like, okay. So these are a couple things that I looked at. It's like, yeah, all right. So this, doctrine-wise, you look at it, but it's building up a setup for probably the next episodes that I'll go over probably on Thursday or next week, right? So it's quite interesting because in the end, you look at this and it's going to be, they're going to say what they think and they feel, regardless. And most of the people, when they, in the documentary, it's not going to tell you that, oh, they went to the hospital and they were checked and it was found to have no signs of sexual assault, right? It's not going to tell you that. But at the end of it, it just says these are true testimonies. And the answer is, that's true. They are true testimonies. That's what they testified about, right? Doesn't matter if it's true or false. It's just that's what they testified about, right? So that's why when you look at even the court case that happened in 2008, remember, one of the people came out and said, it's untrue, it's false, I lied. And even the person who was with me, we were told to lie too. So imagine that you were looking at these people, like a lot of people are using these testimonies, but when you look, it's like, wait a second. Why would they use this testimony? That makes no sense, but it's there to create a narrative, right? And yeah, like I find it very difficult, like captions of these, like they have the pictures or videos of Sunstein, like taking a picture with, taking a picture in swimsuits. Like there's girls there. And I don't know. For me, it just doesn't prove anything. Because I've been with Sunseam where that's happened, where we have we're in American Providence and we are together and we take pictures and we want just the guys to take pictures. Just the guys in Sunseam, and that's fine. Like I just found that to be very manipulative, to put it that way, saying, look what he does here. But I'm like, no, but he also takes pictures with just guys. So why don't you put those pictures up too? You know what I mean? And there was another point where this woman was talking about in Womandong, when it was first starting, there was these containers. Like these containers you put onto boats and ships, these metal containers, and that's where people were sleeping. And they're like, oh, there's women packed in there, sleeping in such bad conditions and stuff like that too, right? And the other thing they left out was there's also men living in those containers, right? There's a side for the men and a side for the women. It's not, it just kind of making it look like it's only girls. It's all about girls. But when you look at the reality, it's oh no, there were guys there too. Yeah, there are people who were working there. And it wasn't just Sunseam and the girls. It was Sunseam and the guys. Guys were there too, right? Guys were always around them also, right? And, when I looked at, there was a lot of stuff about people the cheerleaders on the sidelines, and yeah, there's some stuff that came out where it's purely what they're saying, and there's absolutely no proof about this, because it's there were people, obviously people cheering on the sidelines, and he's playing sports all day and doing this. He's really, really busy, showing people sports and stuff like that too. All right. And that's fine. But they said after sports, Sunseam would shower with the woman, where we're well, most of the times, the girls, I'm just gonna give you my experience too, is most of the girls would be oh my gosh, the guys, because the biggest benefit about guys is we get to go to the sauna with him. We get to, that's a Korean cultural thing. We go and take to the sauna together with him and stuff too. And the girls oh wow, even though the girls have, get to do other they get to serve him and do all the other different things like that, because they want to. But on the flip side, the guys have the other time. We play sports together with him. We shower together. And that's a totally Korean thing. Going to the sauna, guys are it's a total cultural thing. So if anyone's Korean, they know. If you've been to Korea, there are these saunas where guys are on one side, girls on the other, and stuff like that too. But then she was saying that Sunseam would shower with the women, and then on top of that, there's lots of these old accusations. These are all old stuff, old accusations that came out way in the past that hasn't really fallen through. Right? For instance, there was this person named Huang, and she's also someone we know, but she she's from the she was the one that was said to have been kidnapped. So that's why it says kidnapped and sexually assaulted, whatever it is. But we already know it's already been disproven that she was not kidnapped. It's just basically there was an investigative reporter that went to the police station to find out what were the people actually charged with. It wasn't kidnapping. It was simple assault, which is like grabbing someone's hand too hard. It's nothing big. But the way the news portrayed it is kidnapping, which makes, when you hear the word kidnapping, what do you think? You're going to freak out. Your parents are going to freak out. Oh my gosh. And even in this episode 1, they said kidnapped. And I was like, oh gosh. They can't even report it properly. It wasn't a kidnapping, right? And that was already proven by a journalist who talked about how wrong the media was for saying it was a kidnapping. When you go to the police station, it's simple assault, right? And yeah, it was pretty, the accusations were pretty wild, because one of the ones that I thought that was probably the wildest one is one of the alleged accusers, alleged victim, said Sunseam was having sexual relations with up to 50 women a day. That's a lot. You know what I mean? 51, it was very, very, I was really? We know his schedule. We know when he gets up. He goes to pray at the church. It's and there's not 50 girls in the same room with him kind of thing. And it's 50, are you serious? And it was quite ludicrous, because even if you spend let's just say it's 1 to 2 minutes, I don't even want to get into the numbers, but that means he's going to be spending 2 hours every morning doing that. Really? So that's why it's kind of like 2 hours, like almost 2 hours every day from the pre-dawn. Like she was saying like 3 a.m. But we know he's like, it's just, and the reason why this first episode I think is a little bit easier for me to debunk because it's all the old stuff, all the old accusations. A lot of some of the stuff has been disproven and stuff like that too, right? But like I said, it's good directing, it's good producing because it's setting the stage for the next episodes, right? So like I think it's something that we have to understand very, very well and very clearly, right? And for me, I've been in Providence since 1998, so it's been 25 years and such. But of course, I haven't been with him like all day, every day. But when I'm with him, and I see what his lifestyle is like. And yeah, there's a lot of red flags, a lot of questions that came up into my head. But the biggest red flags were a lot of these things were talked about like they are truth when already some of them are proven untrue. Right? So let me give you an example here. Let me give an example when it comes to he said, she said. So this person said that Sunseam is with 50 girls per morning. Every morning is 50 girls. Every morning. Okay? And then I'll tell you, is like, hey, guess what? Well, I've been in Providence since 1998. I saw his lifestyle, and I didn't see 50 girls around him all the time. I didn't see him sleeping in a room with a lot of girls. So then the question comes to, do you believe me or do you believe the documentary? And you're like, wait a second, are you asking us to choose between you and the documentary? But that's not my point. My whole point is not to say believe in me. My point is, I can say one thing and the witness can say another thing, but who is right? Are you going to believe me just because you know me? And the answer is no. Just because you know me doesn't make me right. And just because it's on TV doesn't make it right either. Right? You can't believe me just because you know me, and you can't believe the witness just because they said it on a documentary on Netflix. It's all he said, she said conjecture. That's the hard part about it. That's the hardest part. That's why when people, that's the biggest difference when people find out about, like, say, accusations through someone they're super close to. It's harder because of love, because of our love towards that person we're super close to, we are tending to more believe them, even though we don't even know if they're right or wrong, but we're basing it not on proof or evidence. We're basing it solely on our relationship. And I think that is a very bad way to do it, right? Whenever something comes out, I'll tell you right now, when I was first told about some accusations, the first thing I said is, I don't even want to know who's saying it or who it happened to, because I don't want my thoughts to be clouded by personal relationships. Please do, and I clearly said that, please do not tell me who is saying it. I don't want to know, because I want to be clear, right? I want to be absolute, say, okay, that's what it is, right? So, my point to you guys is, one of the things that makes sexual assault cases the most difficult thing, because usually it's one-on-one and no one is in there except for the two people, right? The thing that makes this a little bit more harder to believe, especially when it comes to the 50 girls, there's 50 girls. Can you name the 50? Or will any of the 50 girls come out and say, there were 50 of us in there? Sometimes up to 50 there. And that's every day, right? So a lot of it is, you're like, okay, so this is something where it's going to just be their perspective of what they're accusing of. Right? Doesn't mean it's true, but if you come from someone who doesn't know anything about Providence, anything about, the church, all these other different things, it's very, very easy to be swayed. Very easy. But when I looked at this, I was like, very, very interesting. Right? And I think there was, they put some lewd videos out there too on the first video. I was like, ugh. Right? Where, there was like these naked girls, right? Like saying something like, oh, come into the hot tub or something along that line. But it's a video, right? And it's not like a video where Sunseam is in the video. It's a video. It looks like it's portrayed as a video being sent to Sunseam and telling Sunseam, if you're tired, come with us, kind of thing. And I was just like, oh, that's interesting. I was like, okay, so this is what other people have done. But what is the reaction from Sunseam's side? Right? And that's something I can go into a little bit deeper in some future ones, just to double check, triple check, are they real? And if they are real, what's the context? What's the content? Right? Why was it done? What was Sun Tzu's reaction? Like, these are the things that I want to look at and say, okay, I want to take a look at this too. And that's something that I have to look in more than, I have to really, really look at it. Yeah. But, that's kind of like a synopsis of, that's like the first episode. And from a production value, I'm just going to talk production value only, not truth, is it was well done, production value-wise, the type of music being used and the way that it was edited. And I thought, it was very good in that sense. And of course, it's true. At the end, they say they're using real footage from witnesses and audio from witnesses, and that is true too. I'm not denying that. Also, these witnesses are. I'm not denying these witnesses that they're not the real witnesses. It is true. It's from the court trial, whatever it is, right? But it doesn't mean that it is all true. It doesn't mean it's true just because they said it, right? That's just their affidavit, and we know that in that first trial, already one person came out saying that it was completely false and they told us to say this, right? So that's something that now comes down to he said, she said, right? You can't base it on, because it's a documentary, you can't base it on this or that. And one thing you have to do is we have to really put on our thinking caps, our discerning skills, and realize it in a much deeper way, right? And look at it much better and have that very reasonable and sane mind. And that's why, like I said, I'm looking at it purely from a legal mindset. Does it prove anything? Does it show anything? The answer is no. Was any of this evidence used for past trials? Most of it wasn't. If it was that big and that crazy, then why would it be used in the other trial? And the answer is it wasn't, right? So that's something that we have to look at and say, this is quite interesting. We have to look at it more deeply. But that's kind of my thoughts on that first episode. It wasn't anything that we didn't know about. Some of the things was false, right? And it was just shown in a way it should have been shown. But ultimately, I looked at it and it's like, okay. It's a good set. Like, as someone who's a lecturer, I thought it was a good setup to the next episode. So I kind of like, so then it's just going to get worse and worse from episode 2 to 3. So I'm looking forward to, not looking forward to like in a good way, but I'm looking forward to seeing how they built this documentary also. All right. So there it is, guys. That is the end of today's Provi the Media. Hope you guys really enjoyed, or I'm not sure how you could say it, but was able to get a better idea of that first episode. And this is my personal opinion, my personal thoughts, and I hope it's something that you guys, those of you guys may not understand or know it, will say like, okay, so this is what kind of came out during that first episode. I see. All right, got it. All right. So there it is. That's Provi the Media. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Which means have an amazing and awesome and great day today, right? And let's continue to fight the good fight and stand firm until the end. All right. So everyone, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. I read an interesting article by Massimo Introvini, and of course he's a sociologist in religion, and he does study a lot on cults and new religious movements, but he is very into making sure that there's religious liberty. So people, they're not going to be defamed, or they're not going to be slandered in such an unfair way. But there's this interesting thing that he wrote, and this article is called "Are Apostates Reliable?" And I did leave the link below, right? but the title is "Are Apostates?" Remember what apostate is? It's people who left the church. Are they reliable to ask about, is this church a good church or not? And I just want to go over some points that he made, and I think is very, very interesting. He starts off in this, like I said, the whole article is down there, but he starts off with this very, very interesting apostate, or one of the very first. His name is Charles Chiniquy. Okay, so this guy was originally in the Catholic Church, right? And there's several studies that Massimo has done to the notion of apostasy, and Chiniquy is the most famous professional apostate of the 19th century. All right, so he's a Catholic priest from Quebec, so in Canada. He was ordained 1833, well known for his campaigns on behalf of temperance, whatever it is. But during his tours, he was frequently accused of inappropriate conduct with female devotees. And then he was suspended in 1851, right? And because, he's kind of accused of having performed a criminal act on a young girl. Then later pardoned and allowed to continue as a priest if he accepted to move to the U.S. and never returned to Canada. In the U.S., same thing happened. Local bishops started receiving what they described as grave testimonials regarding the moral conduct of Mr. Chiniquy, and suspended again. And then in 1858, he was excommunicated. All right? So then what happened is he then joins the Presbyterian Church and then devoted the remaining 40 years of his life to campaign against the Roman Catholic Church, right? He claimed that the accusations against him had been fabricated, and he's just a lot of different things that he was saying. And he was, bringing up a lot of conspiracies. And of course, none of those accusations were supported by any evidence whatsoever. But Chiniki became one of the most famous international speakers of the late 19th century and basically inflamed the masses, right? Which sometimes at the end of his speeches resulted in people going to assault the Catholic churches and convents, right? So, that this is one of those apostates, right? So Chiniki is normally called an apostate by historians, and his story offers an opportunity to discuss the different meanings of this word. All right, so in the oldest meaning of the word apostasy is a very, very interesting article. You guys got to read this. It is in the link below. It means disaffiliation from a religion and conversion to another religion, right, or to atheism, right? So in social and political systems where it was, like in some countries you have a state religion. Like apostasy was a crime in the past, right? So, and some religions had that too. So what we're going to, what the most interesting part is, what does it mean today, right? So if you look at today, scholars of cults or new religious movements are those who devoted substantial attention to the issue of apostates, right? So a lot of these scholars are thinking about apostates, right? What does it mean? And they attribute this to the so-called anti-cult movement systematically used apostates to prove that moments it labeled as cults were up to no good, right? So when you see this, the studies are coming out there of apostates and why are they really, really that reliable when they're the ones, they basically spend their whole life trying to take down this one religion they used to be in. Right, and which sounds like what we're going through right now, like an anti-cult movement where you look at the Netflix documentary, KDH, right? KDH, Kim Do-hyun, the guy who's in charge of the anti-Providence movement, systematically uses who? Apostates, other people that used to be in Providence to prove that this movement is labeled as a cult and we're just totally up to no good. So the anti-cult movement was never successful in the academia, where only a handful of scholars accepted its theories that cults were not real religious and used brainwashing to lure their converts. So when you think about it, in academia, the anti-cult movement never really convinced scholars that this was true, right? All the brainwashing. Of course, we learned with sociologists that in most cases, especially in the U.S., brainwashing is never used as an excuse, right? It was way more successful among the media, not with scholars. So apostate stories about religions attacked as cults were immediately popular with journalists. So unlike complicated accounts by scholars, they painted simple black and white stories with clearly identifiable heroes. The apostates and the anti-cult activists are the heroes, and the villains are the cult leaders and sometimes the scholars who doubted the reliability of the apostates. And they also included lurid tales of abuse, which made for good copy, right? So journalists accepted it way more than scholars. So that tells you another thing, right? So it's true that sociological theory was missing, right? Unbeknownst to many journalists, debates on the apostates had already been an important feature of discussions about religious minorities in the 19th and early 20th century. And, it's very, very interesting. This is something that you guys should read about. Are apostates really reliable, right? What is the problem with apostasy? Right. And I have posted that into the comments below, so you guys can take a look at that too. And I'll help you guys to understand that this is kind of the exact same MO of what's happened in the past when it comes to other churches or were branded as cults. And all the media would do is talk to the people who used to be in there, or they are the anti-cult movement. Right. So it's kind of like what we see now is kind of like exact copy of what it was like in what scholars study today. And the vast majority of scholars do not even accept this anti-cult movement. They don't even accept it scholarly. The main people accepting it is the media, which is kind of what we're looking at right now when we look at a Netflix documentary, right? It's kind of good for copy. It's good for the press to get more eyes on it, right? So quite interesting. So that's why today I'm going to do the breakdown in episode 2, right? And I want to make sure that everyone understands what is there and the parts that I know for sure that are untrue, and a lot of them are just being used, like older witnesses are being used that have already been disproven and stuff like that too, right? So that is what I'm going to go over today. I'm sure a lot of you are going to skip straight to that also, but all right. So let's get into Provi in the media, and of course, this is very, very important at this time because of all the accusation things that are going on right now. I did talk, we know about the Netflix documentary that's out right now too, and I did want to talk about episode 2. I did, if you guys haven't heard episode 1 yet, go ahead and take a look at it at, on the Tuesday podcast for Provi in the media. Is it Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday podcast, okay? So today I'm going to start with episode 2. And episode 2, it starts off with a 1999 accusation, and it's about someone named Huang, and she was abducted and beaten for 4 hours. Okay? So here is the one that's talking about kidnapped and abducted and beaten for 4 hours. And this was actually, like, those of you guys who don't know, if you go to civil, it's called civil government, there was an investigative journalist who went into this witness, Huang, who said they were kidnapped and beaten for 4 hours. It did go to the police. And this is, I'm going to read to you the article. This is the article written by the investigative journalist who actually went to the police station to find out what happened. So here it is. It says, this is written, and this is also was written in a police journal. In 1999, there was intense public interest in the organization, which is Providence, because of the ongoing media coverage. At that time, a certain broadcasting company, I'm not sure which one it is, but it says some company aired the so-called Miss Huang abduction scandal, claiming that some leaders of the religious organization kidnapped Huang, one of the church members. What I learned from the police, however, indicated otherwise. It was not abduction, not kidnapping, but rather a simple assault case. Assault and kidnapping are 2 very different charges with very different penalties. After verifying the facts, so this is fact-checking, I wrote an article in the police journal. Then a person whom I will heretofore refer to as the informer called me up. He played the role of filing complaints on behalf of the plaintiffs behind the scenes. I didn't know at that time how he was related to the case, though. He protested in a somewhat upset voice. He complained, "Why did you describe a kidnapping case as a simple assault case?" And then obviously the investigative journalist said, I verified the investigation details from the Cheonan police station. I explained that the article was written based on the facts. He and I agreed to meet in person to continue our conversation, but the informer did not show up. When I called and asked, "Why aren't you here?" he gave me an irresponsible and ridiculous reply saying that he just didn't want to meet me and that he was returning home. So this first thing, so you're going to look at that first case of this person saying that, oh, I was kidnapped and beaten for 4 hours. It went to the police. There was no beating. So I'm talking facts right now. This is from the investigative journalist, and it wasn't kidnapping. It wasn't abduction. It was a simple assault case. Very different. Very different. Like one is going to be like a felony, and the other one is a total misdemeanor, right? So there's the first one that we're looking at. That's why, for me, knowing that case already, I couldn't, I looked at it as like, well, basically this person, even though this documentary is not lying, they're saying these are actual witnesses with a real affidavit. It's true. These are the actual people doing it. However, that first person off the top has already been disproven, right? The actual police report was found. The investigative journalist said, nope, it's basically, that's what it is, right? It was kidnapping, but it's actually simple assault. So that's why that very first case of Ms. Huang, because I already know the truth on that matter, it makes no difference to me. Like these are all old. Like the reason I'm telling you this is a lot of this stuff is so old. They're rehashing old figures that have already been investigated, and a lot of them have been dismissed. Like they're not even going to go through the court because the facts don't match, right? So. Yes, the documentary is allowing them to say what they want to say, and that's fine. That's fine. But one of the hard parts is they're not telling you about this extra information that everyone else, if you just look it up simply, you're going to know. You're going to know the facts about it. And that's why I do think it's a dishonest documentary in that sense when we already know that's not true, right? And then, of course, in 1999, Sunseem started going to the foreign countries, and then the media went against Sunseem, and he says, oh, Sunseem ran away from Korea, right? So let me tell you what actually happened in 1999. Did he run away? Was he running away from the case? Okay, so in 1999, what happened is SBS, which is a Korean media company, instigated by KDH, which is the person in charge of anti-JMS, right, made sexual allegations against Sunstein in a broadcast. And then Sunstein traveled overseas for missionary work during this period as well. Now, following this first broadcast, overseas news media jumped on the bandwagon and broadcasted sexual allegations against Sunstein. And after these allegations, the CGM sued SBS for its report. Nonetheless, conflict and confusion among members ensued, right? So, Sunstein was accused of fleeing overseas. However, the sexual assault charges were in fact dismissed by the prosecutors involved. So we're going into what facts are. It was dismissed. And he was able to travel overseas lawfully. They were dismissed. So he was lawfully traveling overseas. And even during that time, he returned to Korea several times. And basically, they only investigated him about his travels. And that's why the news broadcasted about Sunstein was different from the facts, right? So you're seeing that there's a much, much different thing from the media compared to what is the actual fact. And that's why, I was reading that first part about to you about the apostates. Are they reliable? And the people who are giving the voice to the apostates are mainly the media and not the scholars who are like, no, this doesn't really hold true scholarly, right? So, one of the things you have to know about KDH is the person who is like the main person in charge, right, of the anti-providence group. So in the investigative journalist brought up new evidence against him. And this is why these trials should never have gone through. Or there should have been at least a retrial in Sunstein's case. He says there is evidence, like real evidence, like paper written on it that is a signed affidavit, signed and notarized. Notarized means someone from the government is going to notarize saying this is actually you. November 15, 1999, KDH wrote a letter of self-examination, and he said to Sunstein, this is written in the letter, Sunstein, I deeply regret that I backstabbed you. I defamed you by spreading scandals against you and caused you a deep wound. And the letter was authenticated before he sent it to the church's central office. And there were 2 letters that are authenticated and sent as apology. And they were both sent on March 17th and July 21st of 2005. Right? Parts of his letters are, I apologize that I have defamed and insulted you until now out of misunderstanding. I apologize once again that for the past 6 years, I and the members of the group, the anti-providence group, have misunderstood you, so we have slandered and insulted you. The letter was handwritten by the informer himself, which is KDH, including his seal and photo. So those of you guys know are Asian. You have a seal to say this is you, right? And his photo on top of it, right? So, when you think about this investigative journalist is saying it seems that KDH was taking advantage of the nature of the case, which is sexual assault, which complaint has to be filed by the victims, but he managed those who claimed to be victims and prompted them to sue Sunstein. Then, without letting them know, so here's something else that KDH did is he prompted them to sue, and then without telling the people that are suing him, he went behind their back and demanded $2 million. Right? And he said that once you demand is met, then we would withdraw the legal action. So that is something that, we have to understand. This is someone who's basically like the apostate. Their life is there to come against, to go against, they spend the rest of their life to be the sworn enemies. Okay? So there's one thing you do need to know. Now, here's something that I think is very, very interesting, like something that's very, very sad. And this part makes me really sad. It was the assault on KDH, his father. Right? So I don't know about the assault against him. Well, actually, I do know the story where KDH actually got into a fight with a member, and you do see the videos of him, with the bloody side, and I actually, I forget what year it was. Was it 2002, 2004? No, 2007. But I did meet I did meet one of the people directly who actually got into a fight. And you guys got to go to the police reports. There's no police reports in this, but KDH pulled a gun on him, and then they fought. And then from what I know, is it was put aside because the moment the gun is pulled, then it's self-defense. But we're not going to know this because it doesn't show you the police report itself. So if we need to go into this even more deeply about the assault on KDH, we have to go to the police reports just like the investigator did before, right? But we don't see any of that either. So then it goes into the history of who KDH is. But like the reason why I brought up all the different letters that he sent to Providence, also saying that he's very sorry, they're doing the wrong thing. But he was actually, he's an apostate. He was in Providence in 1995, right? And some of the things that you're gonna see in here is like KDH will say things like, Sunsteem said, all professors should learn from me. And I've heard Sunsteem say something like this, but the context is much different, right? And also, the story of the king and queen, and Sunsteem, you hear Sunsteem like cussing or whatever it is. I've heard that message too. And basically saying this is probably what it sounds like realistically what really happened at that time, especially a king back in those days, right? Where it's very, very patriarchal and the women are seen lesser, right? So he's just saying this is probably what it's going to be like. I'm going to talk to you realistically of what the actual conversation was, right? And, there's some stuff in here, like there's a woman testifying from way long ago, like 1999, that says that many people cannot speak up against Sunsteem because Sunsteem said that he will kill their mother, right? So, all of this stuff from the past, right? They're all way, way back. Remember, all of these things have been dismissed. Are they true testimonies? Absolutely. They're actually testimonies. However, all the things that from the past have been dismissed. And if you think about this, why do people think, why are people saying that this KDH guy is such a bad person, like even like, oh, this guy's like Satan kind of thing? And of course, we know what it means when you call someone Satan. You're not calling them like they are literally Satan, right? But we learned in the Satan principle that Satan works through people. But even for me, it was kind of weird. Like this guy's calling Won Myung-dong saying, let me talk to that beep, beep, beep. So he's cussing too. So it's not like this guy's showing himself any better, but he's sitting there like, oh, and this, and this, and yeah. And he's just cussing a storm. So why would anyone in Won Myung-dong want to give the phone to Sunsteem to talk to this guy who's cussing a storm? Right? And I'm going to be honest with you guys too. You guys can, think about this also. How many of you guys have ever heard of KDH? Because this guy's talking like, oh, and Sunsteem, talks bad about me all the time to people, and everyone knows who I am, and they all think I'm Satan. And the answer is, how many of you out there right now have heard of KDH? Because that's what KDH is saying, is that we're telling people his name, who he is, and how wicked and bad he is. And I'm going to be honest with you, even I didn't know who his name was. He's coming to the spotlight because of this documentary. Like, are there any of you, like, some of you guys out there, have you heard any of your leaders talk about KDH? Kim Do-hyun, the one you see in the documentary? No one's heard about him. We don't talk about him. And he was trying to prove himself by showing a video of Sunsteem talking about KDH. But even in the video, Sunsteem never mentions the name. Never. So even then, it's not proof that, Sunsteem's going around telling everyone about this KDH guy and how he's Satan. Yeah, he's saying that these people coming against me, Satan's working through them. Never says a name. How many of us have heard the name? Have you? I haven't. For me, actually, it's been less like, oh no, I rarely hear about that kind of stuff, right? So even in there, I was like, yeah, well, he's saying that, but reality is I don't really hear about KDH at all. It's almost like we're shielded from him. Like, we don't really hear his name. And yeah, it's very, very interesting because, Malaysia popped up, Taiwan popped up, Hong Kong, popped up, and this is all old stuff, and that's why for me, the thing that was really weird for me is I don't understand why the documentary, like the director, would go to the old stuff that's already done, disproven, dismissed, or it's just false because none of the facts actually were like true or corroborated with anything else. Where we've already had witnesses saying, no, there's no way that could have happened in Malaysia or Taiwan because there's always people there. Susie barely sleeps. People sleep next door. Sometimes people are in front of the door. So it's a lot of this, yeah. even for me, I was hoping they'd start coming to America. It's like, oh, and in America, this happened, and this happened in America. And I'd be like, no way. Because for me, when Susie came to America, I was there both times in 1999. And I would have loved to have heard them talk about that about America. Because when he came to America, no, it was, gosh, I'm going to tell you guys, when he came to America, the first day I met him, it was a 22-hour day. And even when he went into his room, he was counseling. I don't think he slept. And people were in the house. If something like that was happening, everyone, because it was it wasn't even a hotel, it was a house. No, so I was hoping that they'd say something about America, but they didn't. So I'm going to tell you this is like, if what they're saying is like everywhere he went, he was sex crazy, this, and this, I'm like, I've been with him in America. I was followed him around over there in Italy, in France, in England, in Germany, and I'm just like, this is crazy. And that's why for me is a lot of this stuff is so old, and that's why I really thought to myself that something new was going to happen. Like, oh, is there something new that I haven't seen? Oh, I want to see this evidence. But the reason I'm so disappointed, like I told you guys yesterday, is it's just there's nothing. Everything is the same as before. I just haven't seen anything. It's just, it's really, it'll really affect people who know nothing. That's who it's going to affect. People who know absolutely nothing is going to affect them. That's for sure. If you know absolutely nothing of what, of any of the cases in the past, then you're going to be affected a lot. You're like, oh my gosh, is this true? Oh my gosh, is this true? Right, there was a 2003, like these are all old, 2003 assault case. I urge you to guys go on providencetrial.com, look at the timeline, and you're going to see all these cases there, whether they were dismissed or whether they were pushed forward, whatever it is. So, yeah, it was just, some of the stuff was really hard to watch because I already knew it was false. Like that first one, the Huang case, I already knew about that one. And then when Sunseep says that, don't watch the news or you could, you'll lose your salvation, that's obviously if people, he's thinking, when you remember when Sunseep talks to the very general group, when we know the context of it, the general group is there are some people not ready to listen to it, will be really severely affected by it, right? And they could lose their salvation, right? So, that's not something, it's something that we understand if you understand the context of it. However, one of the things that I like that Massimo E. Trevino talks about is the news media is they're not religious, but they're looking at it from a non-religious eye. And that's what makes it even more ludicrous or weird. But people in the religious sense understand this much better because you'll hear the same thing in Christianity, right? If this happened or this happened, yeah, you'll lose your salvation, right? You'll lose your salvation. Like, that's something that only religious people will understand, and it'll be something that we can take into context. But if you take it from the worldly point of view, it's so weird. You're right? It's true. It's really, really weird if you take it from the non-religious context. And that's why it's really hard for a non-religious media to be covering religious things. And that's why it's much better to look at it from a religious point of view. So, and the way when Sunseep talks about don't look at the slander, it's more about protection. Right? That's remember, the one thing in Sunseep's mind is always about life. It's always about saving people. For him, it was always about, hey, don't look at that kind of stuff. Yeah, some of it's so shocking, it can affect people, and some of it's not even true. Some of the stuff I've seen when I was in Korea during the time when I was at the Lord's Church, man, like, At one point, we had someone, like they had a truck pull up to the front of the church playing like these sexual videos. And later on, guess what we found out? Why was it inadmissible evidence? Because it was deep faked. It was deep faked. You know what deep fake is? Like they'll take the face of someone else, they can put it onto a video. So, these sisters who were assaulted together in Hong Kong. There was like these twins, they're not twins, like these two sisters went to Hong Kong to visit. And then there's the next thing that shows is these sisters that went to go visit Sunseam and stuff like that. And then one of the sisters saw this happen. They were asleep and then they woke up and they saw what Sunseam did to his sister kind of thing. Guess what? Charges were dropped. Didn't even go through. So when you look at this too, we're like, wait, they're just basically giving a voice for a lot of people to see it. Now, I think there was two things from the video that I thought, for me, it was kind of like, like it just looks so bad, but I want to get more into it to find out more of the details of what happened. Like when you see those videos of those like girls sending these really lewd stuff, right, to Sunseam. And I looked at that, I was like, wow, like, is that real? And I'm going to look into this one for sure. But I would say that, for me, two of the things that I thought were quite embarrassing if they were members would have to be, number one, those videos or pictures, lewd pictures. And number two would probably be, like, members going out and hurting the father of KDH. And I think that, those two things, you cannot have any excuse. Like, that, for me, was the most embarrassing one. And I want to find more information on it, but man, like people do extreme things for religious reasons. They do. But that is just ridiculous. Like if you were the people that did that, like I would myself would be like, I apologize. That should never happen. And, Sunseam's not the one asking for these things. We all know Sunseam. Sunseam's not telling people to go beat people up. Sunseam's not telling people to go beat someone. Like, Sunseam even brought it up in a message about KDH's dad. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Are you guys crazy? Like, are we like gangsters? And I'm glad Sunseam brought that up, too, in the messages also. Because, for me, that is crazy. And for me, that's embarrassing as a member. And I think a lot of times, sometimes the members, we do things, right? We do things that are, yeah, those are the two things that I thought, that's why I thought episode 2 was the worst. Because I looked at some of the actions of members and stuff, and that was the one that really just crushed me, even more than episode 3. Like, this was the worst one for me. Just for me feeling bad as a member. I'm like, did we actually do that? That is crazy. And who is telling people to do that? Like, that's crazy. Like, for me those are the two things I looked at and said, man. And that's the one thing that we have to understand very, very carefully, right? We do. And when I look at that, I'm just like, yeah. So I a lot of things I looked at, and it doesn't say anything about Sunseam because, there's nothing like Sunseam is saying, I did this. I told people to do this, but he's actually going against it, even in the services, saying, I didn't tell him to do this. This was the wrong thing to do. You got to repent for this, right? But, for me, it was that was really, really embarrassing. Yeah. There was this phone call between Sunseam and a girl, but the thing that makes this phone call really bad only is because of the follow-up. Everything that's building up, and then when Sunseam talks to this girl, he basically says, hey, I want you to come. Oh, you look really pretty in the pictures, right? So, I've heard that before, so that's not a big deal for me. But then the thing that makes it look bad is because of the follow-up. So he's like, so what are you going to do here? He's like, oh, I'm going to listen to the word. Okay, besides the word, what else are you going to do here? Right? So it stops there. So there's nothing incriminating. Like, that phone call has nothing bad about it. There's nothing bad. It's just the insinuation of the documentary saying that, that he only wants this. So they play that part of the phone audio, but it never gets to the point where it's like he'll say literally, this is what I want you to do. because they don't have, there's nothing incriminating. If that's the best they can do, the only thing that makes it really bad is the follow-up. Everything before that, just trying to show them as this type of person. And then when you listen to that phone call, you have that in your mind, so you think, oh my gosh, he's talking about sexual things. And the answer is no, there's nothing incriminating about that phone call either. It looks bad because of what it leads to, what it's trying to insinuate. But, if you look from a lawyer's mind, there's no incriminating, nothing incriminating there. He didn't say anything to show that it's wrong, right? That's why it'll never be used in a court, right? There has to be something evidence like, I want you to come here to do this, right? Not just saying, what are you going to do when you come to visit, right? So when your mind is already on that path watching this documentary, it pushes you to think in a certain way. And that's why, people who are very easily swayed emotionally can easily be thinking, oh my gosh, this is what Sunsim's saying. But I've heard Sunsim talk about the same thing. What are you going to do here? Don't just come here to listen to the word. Go and sightsee. Go and see people. Go and see the sights. Go to the amusement park. Sunsim actually says that, right? So when your mind is only on one path because you're watching the documentary and only seeing sexual things, then what happens is your mind stays on that path. And when you hear Sunsim's conversation, what are you going to do here? Or what are you really going to do here, kind of thing, right? You usually think to yourself, I only have one way to think. Oh, he's thinking this. But I've heard conversations where he's like, no, go sightsee. Go see amusement parks. Go meet some friends. Go have a good time. Don't just stay with me all day. Is there only one answer to what are you going to do here? It is completely not incriminating on that one. What are you going to do here? Besides, the messages and stuff, what are you going to do here? And it's trying to lead people into thinking that way. Right? Another video that people, that we know, a lot of us who have been promised a long time, that 2003 mosquito net, when they do the video of the mosquito net, that's such an old video. It's so old. Right? And even though these people say that they went to Sunsim's house the night before and they looked and they saw Sunsim having an orgy with a bunch of girls, right? But then they said, I forgot my camera that day. Like, seriously? Really? Like, really? Like, their whole point is to capture him and they forgot so the whole time when they said with their own eyes they saw the orgy, but, we didn't have a camera at that time. And in the mosquito net, with this 2003, when it comes down to this mosquito net, this incident, all these other different things, what happened in 2006, all this amounted to nothing. So all this evidence and everything else, what was happening in, was it Hong Kong or China at that time for the mosquito net thing? I think it was Hong Kong. Even that amounted to nothing. So the investigative journalist, this is coming from Minjung News in 2010, in April 2006, there was a Miss J and a Miss K, who are alleged victims, undertook a medical examination in a hospital while under Chinese police protection. The examination resulted in a finding of no traces of sexual assault. The Korean police hospital did a subsequent check on Miss J and Miss K and found no traces of sexual assault. Hence, the case amounted to nothing. Right? So, a lot of this stuff, it's just a lot of conjecture, like what I think is happening. Like, he says, oh, he's bending over. He probably had an erection. I'm like, come on, guys. Like, that's the only reason why he's bent over. That's the only reason, really. There's no video anywhere showing intercourse. Anywhere. There isn't. They tried. There was a deep fake once. Nothing. If there was actually real evidence like that, it'd already been out. And that's why when all these trial cases come out for like sexual assault, whatever it is, there's no evidence like that. It's all he said, she said in the end. If it was there, it'd already been out. Right? And then Sunsi was hit by the guy. He's like, why are you hitting me? Right? So even that was quite interesting. Because later on, KDH actually says they beat him up. Later on in the show. In 2003, in China, they said there was a fox hunt. And there's like that old pastor from Providence. Oh, he's the one that said Sunsi was getting beaten up during that time. So he's the one saying that, yeah, he was hit by the guy. And there's, a lot of the times where these people take short excerpts out of Sunsim's sermons, number one, you have to see with the religious eye, and number two, you have to understand the full context. And tons of stuff is taken out of context, right? And that's why if you have a narrative already running, like this whole documentary has a narrative running of what type of person Sunsim is, then every single thing they take out, these small snippets of the word, are going to be, can easily be looked at in a certain way, right? So, yeah, later on you'll see the KDH's father being attacked. Like I said, that's crazy. Like, that's embarrassing for me. It's a shameful act. Never been done. Sunsim didn't condone it. I was just so unhappy to see that happen. Yes, we're going to make mistakes. People make mistakes, right? But, yeah, I was really sad to see that, right? From what I heard, it's true, too, that there were some members that attacked. And Sunsim actually went on the Sunday message saying, what are you guys doing? I never asked you guys to do this. And I think that's what happens when people become overzealous. And they kind of think that, oh, this is Sunsim Shimjung, this is what Sunsim really wants. And the answer is, really? Does that Sunsim really want that? To hurt someone's father? So, later on it talks about 2006, the Taekwondo follower claimed sexual assault. But we just talked about that above, where they were checked by the hospitals and there were no signs of sexual assault. So, and there is video evidence of them being happy and smiling after they said the incident happened. But it was KDH that said they were, in the video, they couldn't walk because they're in so much pain. There's no video about it, but remember, there's a video of showing them coming outside of Sunsim's room after that meeting, and the two girls are smiling, happy, and have no problems walking. And that's why that was thrown out too in 2006. So that Taekwondo follower claimed this, but, KDH said they were so, brutalized, they couldn't walk in so much pain, yet when you see the video of them coming out of Sunsim's room, they're laughing, smiling, and have no problems walking. And that's why, and then they were checked by the hospitals and there's no signs of sexual assault. There was the other one, you'll see, some of these things you probably don't want to hear, but 2006, someone said that Sunsim put a hose into their private part, and he started turning on the hose to put water into him, and the belly became so full. And that's what they said, actually, when they filed a prosecution against Sunsim. They said that they put the hose in so deep and so far, and they turned the water on, that Sunsim turned the water on, that it filled their belly with water. And the reason that was thrown out, because every doctor said, nope, that's not possible. It's not possible for that to happen. To put, how far you'd have to put it up, and no matter how much water you put in, it's not going to fill your belly. So even that was disproven when you look at the whole filing of that hose into the private part kind of thing. This is how crazy, for me is, when I listen to this, the saddest thing I've heard so far is the actions of members. That's the saddest thing for me. I'm going to be super honest with you guys. That is just, I can't believe they did that. That is sad for me, right? Overzealous members, people think they know the Shimjung, and we've seen that a lot, where Sunsim will prove them wrong, no, I never asked for that. Right? And I wouldn't be surprised if there were people that sent lewd photos to Sunsim, which makes no sense to me, which also means that, I would say there would be a big problem in leadership also to even get those sent, which I think is ridiculous, right? But I'll have to look more into those lewd photos. I'll have to. Yeah. But, that it doesn't really prove anything about Sunsim. It just, for me, is, it just makes me very unhappy to see that type of thing was done by members. Right? Can we prove it was done by Sunsim? And the answer is we can't. Right? We can't prove anything to that. We have people who were there who can say, what Sunsim said, but in the end, right now, the only thing you can look at right now with that is, why would the members do that? But from what I've seen too in Provi, sometimes some people get a little bit too extreme. I've seen that. Yeah. And then it goes into Sunsim's arrest at the very end of it. So, for that is the end of episode 2. So a lot of the stuff there, the biggest disappointments for me is kind of the actions of members. That's a huge disappointment for me. That was the biggest one that hurt me the most. Didn't hurt my thoughts about Sunsim and all the other different, but it hurt me the most seeing what they did. And yeah, and then a lot of the victims from the meeting, from Huang to the Taekwondo person and the two sisters, a lot of this is already out there. Like the information's out there, and a lot of the things from Taiwan, Hong Kong, Malaysia, whatever it was, they were trying to say. Remember, one of the things is these are real witnesses. Yeah, they're not fake, and I'm not going to deny that. It's not fake at all. Yeah, totally not fake, but it's their account, and all the ones that we listened to for episode 2 were either dismissed, disproven, or there's a lot of information that's not being shown. And that's why for me, yeah, this was the hardest one for me to watch, just seeing members' actions, and that's the one that crushes me. And I would apologize on behalf of Providence. Like, I know the second one, I think, is for members for sure. I'm glad, and like I said, I'm glad Sunsi really rebuked them. But man, yeah. So it kind of shows that sometimes how we really don't know God's heart, or we really don't know what's what God really really wants. And yeah, that's the one that broke me, was just members' actions. And in my life too, I've done some bad stuff also. I've done some stuff I've regretted, but yeah, that's like such on a different level. And that's what I think we have to take responsibility for the things we've done wrong. We really do. Right? We really do. So yeah, those are the two things that killed me. But all those other like the witnesses and stuff, and all the stuff they're talking about, we already seen that. It's all old stuff. A lot of the stuff has been dismissed. A lot of the charges were dropped. Nothing was corroborated, and it's just, yeah, it's quite sad to see that he's just the documentary director's just kind of bringing them up just to build this is what happened. These are real people, and the answer, they're real, but doesn't mean they're right. He's not showing that their cases were dismissed. He's not showing that the charges were dropped. He's not showing that they went to get a hospital checkup to see if they're sexually assaulted, and both hospitals said they were not sexually assaulted. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's just, so that's episode 2, and that's kind of the gist of it there. And we'll go into episode 3 tomorrow. Okay? So instead of the Wednesday message word study, I'll go to episode 3. So there it is, guys. What a sad way to end the podcast for me. Yeah, just crushing for me just to see some of this, just to watch this. It's just old memories that you just don't want to listen to. Either way. So there it is, guys. That is the end of the Provi in the Media with episode 2 of the documentary. And I hope you guys really, look at it with a real eye. Some things we got to take blame for. Some things are shameful. Like, why would they do that? But also, we have to look at it from a truthful point of view. Right? So, there it is, guys. That's episode 2. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Tomorrow will be episode 3. All right, everyone, have I don't know how to end it when it's so sad doing this. But everyone, pray. Make sure that you have your heart in the right place, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. And I hope that everyone is, we've gone through our first week of the Netflix premiere, and I hope that we realize more and more, of course, that as this goes on, as time goes on, a lot of it's going to dissipate, right? Like all the fanfare and all the hoopla will dissipate with time. It's Netflix, and Netflix is not looking, they don't have really a religious agenda. They're just looking to find what's the next biggest thing. And of course, I'm sure all over every different country, you're going to have Netflix in your top 10 for shows, but it's not going to be there for long. Like, I'd say give it 2 weeks max, and then soon it'll be off the top 10. It'll be yesterday's news. It'll still remain there. Excuse me. But I do think it is something that we need to be prepared at all times, because if it's a Netflix original and it's always there no matter what, and even though it's not popular, eventually people could look at it again. And it's something that we should look at and say, hey, all right, so this is what came out. What do we know about this? What is true? What is not true? And I think this is part of why I do the breakdowns. So people are not going to just kind of blindly go in, and they're not even sure what is true and what isn't, and what is fact and what is fiction, right? And that's why I'm hoping to go in with a lawyer's mind. What is actual evidence, like real, true evidence? And if there's no real, true evidence, it's very, very hard for us to even speculate on anything, right? And that's why I look at it from this perspective. If this was my best friend, let's just say it's my best friend, and someone says something bad about them, I think it'd be very weird to have a best friend, and then if a couple of people start to accuse them, I'm gonna all of a sudden jump to the other side. Like, the people accusing have to prove it, right? Beyond a reasonable doubt. They need to really prove it. And once they really prove it, then you'd be like, oh, okay, maybe this person did this, right? But, when nothing is proven and it's all conjecture and it's all speculation, and it's all what, he said, she said, in the end, I'll stick with the person that I know the best. Until proven otherwise. And at this point here, of course, this is even much stronger than that. Yeah, you got to find something super compelling to the point you're like, oh my goodness, this is crazy kind of thing, right? So we're going to get into that when it comes to the episode 3 breakdown. Okay. So today, now that we have that done, let's get into our final section today. And of course, this is one of the big things happening this week because it dropped last Friday, which is a Netflix documentary. And I'm going to go into episode 3 today, and I think it's very, very important for all of us to understand what content is in there, and also what we can gain from it, or the things that we can automatically say, okay, we already know about this. And if I'm going to be super honest with you guys, like I said in episodes 1 and 2, the vast majority of all the documentaries based on old witnesses, old testimonies, and most of them and a lot of them, either the charges are dropped, they're dismissed, they're debunked. It's all there. So I hope that we can all understand this, that it's something that we need to understand first while we're listening to it. And then I'll give you my view at the end of it, okay? So let's get into it. And one thing I do want you to know is, as you can see from my all my 3 recordings on episode 1, 2, and 3, I don't put any music in the background. I just don't want there to be any influence whatsoever, right? It's a very serious topic, and I don't want the music to come in to play a role. I just want you to listen to the facts, listen to the things that are there, and then you can discern a lot better. So the beginning of episode 3 starts with the 2007 arrest, right? And there are some interrogation snippets without any context, and it does show something covering his mouth, but honestly, we have no idea what's going on. It's such a short snippet, a very, very short snippet of it. There's no context to it, and they just keep repeating that same thing over and over again. I'm not sure why they do that. It just looks like, I think that if you take anything that was happening, and we don't know how serious anything was, right? Imagine, let's just say, guys, after being tortured and beaten over there in Korea or whatever, in China and stuff, and you're going through, say, anxiety attacks, would anyone look at that and laugh and say, oh my gosh, they're having an anxiety attack, oh, what an idiot? No, we have no idea what's going on. There's no context whatsoever. It's just a snippet of a video. And when you watch it, it's it's really, really unfair. Imagine if people, haven't you guys had that before when you and your friends are, take videos or pictures of each other, and then for some odd reason, you're just in the wrong position, or your facial expression is so funny, and then they zoom it, and then they snapshot it, right? And you look at that and it's that's so unfair, right? It's I totally wasn't like that kind of thing, but you just caught someone in that moment, right? So I'm going to say this too, is I would say this about anything that is just snippets and snippets of it, right? Very, very short. And they repeat it 5 times during the episode. And I didn't really find that very, of course, it's not flattering for Sunstein, but also on top of it, it's not really evidence for anything. It really isn't, because if it was evidence, then they would be able to use it right away. But they're using it for a narrative that they want, right? Then it goes into Maple, the girl from Hong Kong, and, her life growing up. Talks about her life when she was born. She's born in Canada, and then, she grew up and then went back to Hong Kong, then went to Korea and stuff like that too. And then after, after talking about her life growing up, then it goes to the 2008 arrest and trial, right? Then it shows Sunstein coming out of the airport, and then it says that there was some audio from 2000. There's some audio from it's a 2000. We're already at 2008, but the thing I didn't like here is because they would go back to audios of other witnesses way in the past where these have been dismissed, and basically they're no longer really useful anymore because they're from the past. But they would play something like, "Oh, I can't say anything because Sunstein said he's going to kill my mom," or his bodyguards are threatening to kill me, kind of thing, right? However, I do think in that situation, they could think in a certain way. Like, for instance, if you were a bodyguard and you really were on Sunsim's side, and then you see someone who's just totally like saying stuff against him, like I could see them being upset and angry about them. But Sunsim's gonna go out and threaten and kill people. That's obviously what do you call conjecture, or that's their speculation. They don't know if that actually happened, right? And there's no proof about that either. So it's kind of like, that's why they're using a 2000 audio. And you see how they're kind of moving to 2008, then back to 2000 with a lot of the stuff that's been dismissed, right? And disproven. And they can't even go to court because there's not enough evidence, or the evidence is false. But they go back and forth like, hey, look, see? And then they'll use a 2000 audio to kind of like support, hey, guess what happened in 2008, arrest, trial, and footage, right? And like I said, that footage of him covering his mouth, I don't understand why they keep showing that shot over and over again. And then they said he's foaming at the mouth, and we're looking at that and we're like, no. When you look at it, he's not foaming at the mouth, and there's nothing there. Maybe there's nothing there to show that he's covering himself, but we're not sure what that means, right? So for me, especially when you look at the same thing that happens. Remember, I told you guys yesterday about our Apostates Reliable, and that I posted that on the link below. You can read that too, but it's very hard to take people whose entire life is to defame or to go against Sunsim, anti-Sunsim people. It's very hard to take them seriously because they're going so overboard, right? And they're even admitting that they're slandering. They're admitting that they're backstabbing or whatever it is, right? Through an actual, through a letter that's signed and notarized, right? So when you look at that, it's like, it's very hard to take them seriously in the things that they're saying, right? And then when we go to the court trial, now this is something that's very, very interesting because a lot of people will ask me, oh, what's happening right now, right? Well, if you watch episode 3, the same thing happened in 2008, where there is an old pastor, one of the first 5 to come. We'll call him KGC, Kim Young Chun, right? He's one of the pastors there that's testifying. And he says he was confused by Sunsim denial of being Messiah, right? He was confused by it. And a lot of people that have talked to me, they're all wondering like, well, what's going on here? And I was like, well, that is what we heard. I told everyone like, no, we've heard this before in 2008, right? So here's the interesting thing. When you look at repeating history, 2008, that same thing happened, what is happening today, but they, like say someone came to this history after the trial, say they came in like 2015, right? 2016, 2014, whatever it is, there's no confusion, right? But at that time is the same as this time. So you can look at repeating history and start to begin to understand why these things are happening, right? So this is all what we went through in 2008. So when you hear it now, this is why a lot of us who have been here from 2008, we're not surprised. We understand what's going on, right? So if you look at what happened in 2008, when Sunsim, said the same thing he's saying today, and then life goes on after the trial, and then when a lot of the new people came in from 2010 and on, you guys never were confused, right? So it's like, oh, there's something happening that I'm not quite sure of, and this is the first time experiencing Sunsim talking like this, but we've seen it before, so I'm wondering what that means. And that would be a very mature approach to look at it. Right? The mature approach would be, it's like, oh my gosh, what's Sunsim saying today? What did he say in this week's Sunday message? Oh my gosh. And then you're like, wait a second, he's never said that before. And the answer is, no, he said it. And if you watch episode 3, you'll see it. Yeah, it happened 2008. Oh, what's interesting about 2008? Why did he say the same thing 2008? Well, what's the similarities of now and 2008? Right? And then the next question would be, is it right? Is it the right thing to do? And then I would suggest you guys to look back at early Christian history, right? Start reading up on that history, what happened when it was heavy persecution back then, right? And this is when we're able to get a better idea and a better view, right? And this is why I've talked to many people when they get confused, especially about that area. They're like, oh, okay, that makes a little bit more sense now. Okay, that makes more sense. And that's something that I do think that people should be talking to their leaders and understanding, oh, what happened before? Oh, why was it like this? What's the reasoning for it? Why does Sunsim say this, right? Instead of, oh my gosh, I'm so confused. And then people just like kind of burst and explode like, what? Oh, I'm so, you don't want to ever get yourself into that emotional panic. You always want to sit down, and if you don't have an answer, don't freak out, but just sit on it and say, okay, something's going on. Let me go ask some questions. right? So a lot of you guys are thinking like, oh yeah, that's how I felt, is when Sunstein said this in the Sunday message, which is most likely going to be everyone from after 2010 who came to this history after 2010 will probably be a little bit confused by it, right? But if you guys, like I said, you guys could talk to me, like I understand what happened then too, okay? And then after that, it goes into Sunstein being in prison, 10 years in prison. And then after that, it goes back to Maple. And Maple said she never saw the news. Sunstein told her not to see the news, which he told all of us too, right? It's all for protection, right? Of course, now I think that it's better for us to be in the know. But back then, very, very to protect everyone so that no one gets affected emotionally seeing those things. And then it goes back to Kim Young-chun, one of the former pastors in this history, and he talks about the numbers 1178. So we all understand that too. And Sunstein's birthday 316, and then it goes back to Maple, and she took she went. It talks about her taking swimsuit photos, took pictures in swimsuits, and then it shows a picture that he signed, right, when she's in a one piece. And then it says that if there were a woman that he liked, he would tell them to come visit him in prison. And when you guys see, I don't know how many of you guys have actually been to the times where Sunstein was meeting people in prison. I've been there 4 times. And you're always going with 4 to 5 people or 3 to 4. You'll never go alone because there's just only once a week. If it's once a week, you're not going in alone, right? So I was there several times, 4 to 5 times. And the way that it's depicted in the documentary is wrong. You don't get to see Sunstein face to face. You cannot hold this. Like, Maple talks about her going into the prison and meeting him one-on-one and holding hands with Sunstein. When you go to the actual place, and I'm sure many of you out there who have been to meet Sunstein inside the prison, there's a glass between you, and you have to talk through a mic. Like, you can't touch each other. It's not intimate. And even that, looking at that, I was like, that's so false. And when you look at that, it creates more of an emotional narrative that, oh my gosh, they were touching hands and this. And I'm like, you can't even do that. The way they do it in the prison is you're behind a glass wall. You're looking through glass, like thick glass. You can't even hear him directly. It's through a microphone. You can't touch. So when I saw this was also false. But, it obviously gives off some type of feeling. Right? And then there was then it went back to Maple. So I'm just going to say that there's a lot of things that are false about this documentary. It's not right the way that they did it. And then Maple, it shows her in her apartment near the prison. And she said that from far away, she could see Sunstein writing her name on the wall. And she was moved and she cried. Okay, so, I wasn't there. I can't deny that type of thing. I can't even deny because I've never seen the apartment. Can you see the place where Sunstein is? Can you see Sunstein? And for me, honestly, I have no idea. So I have nothing to say about that, but that doesn't prove anything either. And then 2018, it goes into the release, right? And it's really interesting how they used footage from 316, the first one when Sunstein came out, and they showed Sunstein rebuking everyone. I was actually there. And I was in the group where he was rebuking the leaders, like why aren't you guys clapping, or why aren't you guys more saying amen, right? And when Sunstein was rebuking it, it was scary. And I couldn't figure out why they showed it. They're just showing unflattering parts about Sunstein, but I was there. And the reason he was so upset, it's you guys should be so much more grateful and thankful for 316, right? I'm out. God is watching us. He was more upset because God was watching us, right? And we're not really responsive to it. So when I was there for that, it was a scary time, but it was kind of weird for me to look at the 2018 release and then it shows Sunstein getting very upset. And I was like, why would they show that? And it's, obviously it's to show a certain part of Sunstein, these unflattering parts of Sunstein, right? And I would say it would be no different than someone walking in on Jesus, who was clearing the temple courts and yelling and clearing tables up, whipping the animals out of the temple and turning tables over. Like, that is unflattering. If that was the only thing you saw about Jesus, what would you think? Right? They're not showing the times he's healing. It's not showing the times where he's like so graceful and loving and people are just so moved and inspired by the word, right? It shows Sunsim singing. I'm not sure why it's showing that. And then it shows like Maple singing with Pastor Joan, but you can't see Pastor Joan, but you know it's her. So it's just, yeah. It was quite interesting just to see some of the footage they put in. I'm not sure why they did that, right? And then, well, they're trying to show something in an unflattering position or kind of showing the narrative kind of thing, right? So then it talks about Maple talking about how exhausted she was to sing. And honest, I'm going to let you guys know too that I was someone until the point she went she went offline and then she went to start to slander. I was talking to her until that point because I was actually helping her with a YouTube channel she wanted to start, and she was going to do it on my MSD channel, and it was going to be teaching Korean to people how to greet Sunsim and stuff. So, it's kind of like, well, that's, she was getting ready to make a channel on that, and she was telling me she was exhausted by singing, but she wasn't complaining like, oh, I told Sunsim, and then Sunsim told me to go announcing, and she was very happy about this type of thing, right? So it's kind of exactly what she said here. And then she became an announcer and a missionary, but her goal was to become a missionary and wanted to evangelize a lot, and that's what she told me too. So I believe in that also. And then it went into this other girl from Australia. I believe her name's Sis. In the place, I think her name was Amy, I think. Her story came in on this too. And then it goes back to Maple talking about how she prayed for hours a day just to love Sunstein better. And then she talked about how she rode in a cart with Sunstein because it was promised earlier in letters years ago. I'm just not sure why she was getting into this, but I think it's showing how she was, I don't know what the right word is, that how she came to believe more deeply in Sunstein, I guess. I think that's what it was. And then it went to the accusation. And it was basically one day she was called by Sunstein to come to her, and there was someone else there that was sleeping and told her to sleep next to Sunstein. However, we all know that Sunstein sleeps alone. Like, that's something that's an absolute, especially after 2018. And then she said that, she was assaulted with his hand first. And then she called, I'm assuming it's Pastor Joan, but I'm not sure. So we don't know exactly who it is. Then she called whoever it was that told her to sleep next to Sunstein. And then the basic words that she was saying was, oh, Sunstein is treating you and loving you so well. But Maple was saying, oh, this is too hard for me. I want to leave. And then that person said that they left her there on purpose and gave her an opportunity. And then Maple goes into her second accusation, and then from that point she said she was sexually assaulted like fully at that time. And then after that instance with Sunsim told her that she was raptured and her spirit is big and bright. But of course, for all of us, we all know that rapture already happened, and it's not like he was never saying it. He was already telling people, most of us are already raptured anyways, right? And that was done in 2015, but at that point, she's saying that in 2018-19, she's saying that after doing that, she was raptured. And then she continued to do it because she was afraid to go to hell, and then she thought it was her own fault. And then she said she tried to kill herself, and there's pictures of this too, right? So I don't want to talk about this. Committing suicide is a very, very serious topic. And I do think people who were there, who were taking care of her at that time, that do testify about this. It was obviously not for this reason, but she was doing it for another reason, where if you find out the other reason, you're like, oh my gosh, right? So the insinuation here is that she tried to kill herself because of what Sunsi was doing to her. But you can talk to people who were directly talking and helping her. And it's, it's going to come down to what do you believe. But when the people were helping her, it was about something else. And I don't want to talk about this because I do think it's more of a private matter. So, and then it goes back. So then after that, it goes back to the story of the girl from Australia. And then she talks about her instance, how Sunsim, assaulted her sexually. And then Maple was there too, she said. And then Sis also said that it was, she didn't realize it was a crime, or, she said she was like multiple times, like dozens of times too. Then it goes back to Maple and says, she's like, someone was asking her, all these stars are getting assaulted this way, but how come not you? And then she realized, it's happening to a lot of people. So then she goes back to Hong Kong first, right? And her friend calls her up and says, hey, these stars are getting assaulted like this. They're all accusing da-da-da-da-da. What about you, right? And then she was told to leave quietly and go back to Hong Kong. She went to go see her parents. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've been in contact with her even from before that, right? So during that time, she even did an interview. During that time when she first went back to Hong Kong, she did an interview for the Morning Star Drive. So if she's going back for that reason, I'm not sure why she'd want to do an interview, right? But yeah, so for me, something doesn't click here. And when I talked to her, I was talking to her the entire time for like over a year, right? Especially about going to start a YouTube channel. And we're going back and forth. And then she talks about another time she was back in Korea, and then Sunsim did it to her again when she was sick. And then it goes into the audio recording. Okay? So this is very interesting. This is the one that everyone, like a lot of people are telling me that this is the one that's going to destroy everything, and everyone's going to be, you're going to realize this is it. It's the audio recording. So when I first listened to the audio recording, it's actually the same audio recording I talked about in episode 1. Remember that? I said, yeah, there's something in the intro to it. There's some audio recording, and it totally doesn't sound like Sunsim, right? And then when I heard this again, it was the exact same one. And I would say like 90 some odd % of people are like, no, that doesn't sound like Sunsim's voice. We're talking like 90 some odd. Actually, I've only heard I've heard one person who said it's Sunsim, but the vast majority of people I'm talking to are like, no, that doesn't sound like him. And it's very, very interesting because I can use that as, but that can't be my reasoning why I don't trust the audio recording. Like, can that really be the real reason for it? Could that be the reason for it? And the answer is absolutely not. Right? You can't base it on, I feel that that's not Sunsim's voice. Like, that is not a reason to. And this audio recording is something that is controversial in the court trial. So what do you need to know about this voice recording? Well, number one is they're trying to put it into the court as evidence. But what's the problem is forensics are going into the audio file and it's inconclusive whether it's edited or not. They can't tell. And the biggest reasoning is because they don't have the original phone that goes with it. She changed her phone, so this phone, they can't tell if it's an original or not. It's inconclusive. They don't know. The forensics can't even go in to find out, is this the original or is this edited or not? So that's why it's a, they're talking like, hey, this is something that we don't even know. And if you guys look at what's happening these days, is there are tons of fake audio recordings out there. And you know who it's created by? It's created by like Chat GPT and AIs. It's a regular, normal thing that people can make someone else's voice, right? And you can create it where it's on YouTube right now, where there's saw this on Joe Rogan, where the Chat GPT, the AI, made a voice of President Biden talking about girls with big butts, and it's his voice. So what they do is they'll put a picture of Biden and then they'll put the voice on it, and everyone thinks it's Biden. But that's how sophisticated anyone can get this type of technology, right? Is it Sunsim's voice or not? It doesn't really matter whether I think it's his voice or not. It's not, I'll say it's weird because Sunsim's voice is muffled, but Maple's voice is very clear. Right? So when I look at it, it's like, that shouldn't matter. That's not evidence. The real evidence is forensics can't even tell you that it's edited or not. It's inconclusive because it's not you can't tell it's the original because the original phone is not there. They took it from the cloud. We have no idea, right? So if we want to authenticate it, it's going to be based on, once again, is it real or not? She'll say it's real, and the other side, the defense, will say it's not real, and then what does it go down to? And that's why, for me, the audio recording is untrustable. It's inconclusive. They're still arguing over it. The prosecutors are saying in the Supreme Court there was one time where they used a secondhand voice where it wasn't, where it was allowed. But if you look at the circumstances today, it's so easy to make these fake recordings too. It's inconclusive. Is that really him or not? There's always going to be doubt there, right? That's why the real questions we have to ask is it authentic? Has it been authenticated? Is it altered? Is it edited? Well, the voice doesn't sound like him. Can there be a voice expert that comes in and says, oh, yeah, that's his voice? So that's why even for me is when I looked at the audio recording, people said that's the big one. I'm like, no, that's totally not it doesn't make any sense to me that's supposed to be the thing that's supposed to break the entire case. It'd be much better if it was the original, authentic, and it was that they could say conclusive, authenticated, it is a real audio, and then they have to figure out, is it Sunseem's voice or not? So for me, I was just like, how could that? It's so inconclusive. It's absolutely inconclusive, right? Looking from a lawyer's perspective, is that enough? And I'm like, no, it's not. Even the forensics say it's inconclusive, and they're still arguing over, can you even really use that as evidence if it's inconclusive and we don't even have the original phone? It makes no sense. So, and then last but not least, the last parts of it, I think, is it goes into the 2018 press conference. I think it's 2018, the 316 when she made, was that 2019 then, right? The press conference 2019, I believe, or 2020. It was fairly recent, right? Maybe 21. And it just shows Maple being sick before the press conference, and then at the very end, there's former witnesses from the past that have all been dismissed and debunked and whatever it is, that they say they feel bad for not saying it first, and they feel that Maple is very brave. So it becomes more of an emotional thing at the very end. And then it shows CGM's response, and then it has Maple punching a bag, and showing that Maple is drawing to manage her anger and stuff like that too. So, in the end, they made it a very compelling piece. Okay, so that is episode 3. So what is going to be my final view on this? What's my final view? What do I really think about the whole thing is? I think it was produced very, very well. And the flow, like a lecture, the flow is very good because it goes into the history and it talks about all the different accusations that happened in the past, right? So it builds a big picture of these are all the accusations in the past. These are the people all talking about these things that they said, yada, yada, yada. And then it starts to build where it builds a narrative where everyone's going to say, oh my gosh, this has been something in the past. Oh, what happened here? What happened here? And it keeps moving and moving forward, right? And then at the very, very end, it goes into Maple's accusation, and then her big thing is the actual audio itself, right? And excuse me, I do think the flow of the documentary is good. It's a very good flow. The flow is they want to build hey, this is what we've seen and heard about in the past. And it kind of helps people to see that, wow, this is not just a one-time thing. And then as it moves forward and forward, it goes into Maple, and then it goes into her life as a child, which is great because, people are very inspired and moved by stories. So it talks about her story being young, being raised in Canada, moving to Hong Kong, and then, coming into Providence, all these different things. And then it goes into her story. And then from there, in the end, how is she coping with it? And then all the other the alleged victims of the past were saying, "Oh, she's so brave." And then by the end, it becomes an inspiring, uplifting thing for, especially with women of these days, like a Me Too movement kind of thing, right? Now, so for that, I'll say that's a very good flow. And as a lecturer, I'm like, wow, that's actually, they did it really well in that sense. The thing that makes it very, very difficult for me is if they wanted to, for me, from my point of view, to make it more compelling, I wouldn't have gotten all the witnesses from the past. Especially like, I went over episode 1, 2, and 3, and we're talking about these people like, oh, nope, that's dismissed. Charges were dropped. They went to the hospital, and even the doctor said they were not sexually assaulted. Nope, in this one too, they weren't kidnapped. There was no beating. We saw the police report on this, so that's false too. So all these things that we're seeing false is like, wait a second. Let me ask you guys a question like this, okay? If someone is trying to tell you something, like something really, really serious, and then as they're telling you something that's really serious and they're telling you it's true, they start bringing up things that are false to you to prove their point. How much would you believe what they say? So imagine they start saying to you, and then they said this. And when you check it, they're like, nope, they didn't say that. And then they said this. Nope, they didn't say that either. And then they said this. And you're like, no, I already know this. They didn't say this either. And then this is what happened to me. Then for me is just my gut reaction in the beginning would be like, if I know that all these things in the past are talking about is false, then why would I believe everything that you put at the end? Now, remember, this coming from someone who already knows the difference. That's why I went through every single one. I went through all the investigative journalists, the people went to the police stations, reports, all these different things to show you that, yeah, that's not true. This is not true. This is not true. This is not true. These charges were dropped. This happened here. And no, the hose going into her private parts, her belly was filled with water. All the doctors said, impossible. It cannot happen. This person said sexual assaulted. They went to the hospital twice. Both of them said, not sexually assaulted. So when we look at this, we're like, well, okay. So you're building this story on other parts of history that are not even true, right? Or still going by the media narrative that are saying he's this, and this, when it's already proven a lot of, Sunsi ran away in 1999, but then we look at the facts is, nope, charges were dropped, and he was lawfully going overseas, and whenever he came back, they only asked about what was he doing overseas, and that's it. But the media narrative is he's fugitive on the run. That's like the media narrative. So a lot of these things I looked at and I was like, man, it would have been, for me, it would have been so much more convincing if they weren't using witnesses from the past that were already cases dismissed, not enough evidence, or the evidence was false. And like when they remember there was like that one point where Sunsi was in China being interrogated, and it's like, why did you hug those 3 women when you were naked? They weren't naked, but you were naked, kind of thing. And he said yes, right? Honestly, from the Chinese interrogation for 10 months there, beaten, tortured, interrogated in that way, and then in the very end, they found him innocent. I don't trust anything from that interrogation for 10 months. And in the end, what did the Chinese government do? Sunsim, you're innocent. You're free to go. So even that, I'm like, well, what context, what is he talking about? And how much duress is he in, beaten and tortured? What's his mindset at that point? But even in the end, you're innocent. So for me, when I look at all the stuff that happened in China, I'm just like, okay, well, they found him innocent. Even after beating and torturing him, they found him innocent. So for me, it's just like, yeah, okay, let's move on. Right? The only thing that I found that was really so disappointing to me was what members did. Right? The one I want to have to look into more is like those videos of these naked girls and stuff like that too. And then the other one was like, beating up KDH's dad. I think that's just terrible. It's terrible. Don't know the situation or context. Got to figure that out. But I know that I don't understand what these members are doing. However, we have to take responsibility for it. Does it prove anything? And the answer is no. Coming from a lawyer's mindset, it doesn't prove anything. It proves nothing. And then on top of it, like when you see this, it's just like, from a lawyer's point of view, there is nothing there that proves anything. There just isn't. And I didn't like it using the old, like I think they would have been better off not using the old stuff. Because anyone who is like diligent in looking into things, they'll figure out, well, that was dismissed. hey, that's not true. Like, what kind of witnesses are these? Like, even some outlandish stuff like with 50 girls a day. That's what Sunstein was doing, 50 girls a day. Tell me that's crazy. Like, that's like outlandish. No wonder a lot of these things were thrown out, right? So when I look at this, I'm like, yeah, man, I could have done much better than this. They really, really could have. And because of the way that they did it, for me, for me, when everyone's saying that this was the big one, for myself, this might sound funny. I enjoyed this. And you're like, what? How can you enjoy watching it? Because like going in from a lawyer's mindset and picking things apart, I enjoy that. A lot of you who met me before, I like to pick things apart. I have a very, very legal mindset. That's why it's good for me for lectures. That's why it's good for me when I'm explaining things. I like to pick things apart. And I enjoyed watching it it was just so easy to pick everything apart for me. Some parts I want to research a little bit more, but so far there's been so much, So for me it was interesting to watch. And I do say, I'm going to tell you guys right now, if you're someone who has no knowledge of all the other different things that happened, all the charges that were dropped, all the court proceedings, all the police reports, that you'll get the official police reports, you're going to get confused and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, what have I done with my life? But, I want you guys to be mature about it. Be reasonable, be rational. And when you hear it's like, oh, okay. Oh, that's what happened here. Okay. So let's figure this out too. And when you listen to this, you're like, oh, okay. So that makes sense here. Right? And make sure you check everything you check on the internet, because, you might hear something. What if it's just hearsay? What if it's not the actual police report? If you don't find the police report, what's going to happen? It's not, you can't even say it's true. It's just hearsay, right? So, the one thing that I find also is, how do I know that it's a narrative that they're running? It's mainly because all this stuff was filmed well before the trial. Well before. Right? So, in all the stuff there, no actual real evidence or proof that Sunstein has done anything. And if it's filmed well before the trial, they're just basing it on their own narrative, and they want to paint something like this, that they're even going to all those witnesses from a long time ago, which we also know it's like a lot of it is dismissed and they're not, proven wrong. Misinformation, stuff like that too. So, that's why for me, you want to look at the proof more than anything else. Look at the proof. And even if the proof itself, if all this proof is like, it's not conclusive, maybe you got to look at your life too. Look at your life. Look at the word. What has happened in your life with this history too, right? In the end, it has this, if everything is inconclusive, what's happened to you? When you met Sunstein, what did you feel like, right? So, or what actually happened during that time? Have you been healed? Have you been, has your life changed? And those are some things that we have to look at also. All right. So there it is, guys. That is the end of going into episode 3. And you got a kind of a good idea of what happened in all 3 of those videos. And, leave a comment below what you guys really feel about it. And, I would love to be transparent, but I hope that everyone can be very reasonable, unemotional about it too, and just really think about the evidence part itself. Because that's the part that I look at most, is the evidence. What evidence is true? What do we know for sure about this evidence? What do I know for sure about this witness? What do I know for sure about this testimony? Right? And then to me is like, why would you use it if for sure it's already in the courts that's dismissed, or they had false documentation? Right? Because that happened. That happened where there was false documentation where someone said they were sexually assaulted, and they brought papers from a hospital, and then Providence people went to the actual hospital and said, where is the report of this person? And when you see the actual report, it's not. It's forged, right? So when you look at this, it's, for me, it's like, Look back at our Apostates Reliable. Look at that report and see how apostates actually go against their former religions that they left. And you're going to see exact same blueprint of what you see right now. And that's what's quite interesting too. And looking at it from a sociologist's point of view, a scholar's point of view, right? So that's what I have so far for now. If you guys want to talk more about it, would love to hear what you guys think. You guys can DM me. Like I said, I'll talk to anyone about this too. And I would love to keep this, very cordial and professional. Okay? So there it is, guys. That is the end of today's podcast and for the rest of the week. Hope you guys have an amazing weekend. And, have an amazing weekend. Talk about your feelings. Talk about what's going on in your life. Would love to hear from you guys, too. And then we'll see you guys again on Monday on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm